America's two great pastimes collide on this podcast. It is baseball and making money. From the dog days of summer through the October Classic, Greg Bases Peterson's going to be free swinging at the betting board as he tries to hit a grand slam for your bankroll. Now here is GP.
Hello one and all to the Azuñia Tequila Studios for MLB Overtime Betting. Greg Peterson out here on this lovely Saturday. It is 420, though I'm not going to be lighting anything up. What I will be lighting up is a tremendous interview with Joe Rivera of the Sporting News in the second segment, and going to be answering your Twitter questions in the first segment before we give you a side and total on every game on the Vegas betting board in a little something I like to call touch 'em all to finish things up. Note that some of these games are going to be off the board because with the doubleheaders, we've got a bunch of pitching matchups and everything like that, and with the doubleheaders, the second game of a lot of these doubleheaders currently not up on the board, so just keep that in mind when we go through these picks. But first things first, you guys asked me a couple questions on Twitter, and I'm going to provide you guys some answers.
So you have questions, and Greg may or may not have any insight into them, but let's dive into the Twitter mailbag.
I feel like I've answered this one before, but this one comes in from AC Nelson 93, goes by Andy Nelson. He was asking why there was no total up on Arizona versus the Chicago Cubs game on Friday, and there's going to be none up on Saturday right now until the morning, and the reason why is because of the wind. You just can never predict these Wrigley Field totals unless if there is a lot of wind. The reason why the total was 7 when the Diamondbacks and the Chicago Cubs played on Fridays because the wind was blowing in at 25 miles per hour, so it is one of those things where the wind really impacts those totals, so that's why very easy answer there. This next one comes from Cappy612, that is his Twitter handle and the name that he goes by, at @Gina_D1. I apologize if you've answered this before, and I have not, so no need to apologize. But how do you handicap MLB home teams you bet and the over, considering you are losing a bottom of the ninth at bat? Now, this is something where your totals on these games are going to vary a little bit based on whether or not you have the home or road team being able to win the game. And a big impact is just sort of what reliever do you think is going to be coming in the ninth inning? Because if you're betting on like the Kansas City Royals and they are the road team and they're going to be bringing in Brad Boxberger in the ninth inning, you have to handicap that differently rather than, say, Edwin Diaz last year of the Seattle Mariners, who was just closing out absolutely everything. It is one of those things where sometimes I will look a little bit more at an over if I think the home team is going to lose. I'll look a little bit more of an under because I think the home team is going to win because you are losing those at bats. So it is one of those things that you have to play game by game because obviously the San Francisco Giants are going to play lower scoring games than, say, the Seattle Mariners as well. So it all depends on the team, and whether or not you think the home team is going to win or lose is impacted based on the relievers that are out there. So this goes back to bullpens, and I will keep on harping about this. If you're going to win in baseball betting, you really need to be paying attention to the bullpens. They are paramount. We're noticing that bullpens are pitching much better, which has led to unders, which we're going to be getting to in the recap of everything from yesterday. But it is very important that you note the closer that you think is going to be coming into this game. And typically this is one that varies a little bit less by the bullpen because typically you know whether or not the closer came in the night before or not. You typically know who's going to close. Sometimes you get mismatch of players that are going to be closing out games. We notice this with the Brewers and everything like that. But for the most part, most teams have a set closer. So that should be able to help you out. We got another question in here. This one comes to us from Pocono Mike. And you can follow him on Twitter at Pocono Mike 4, and he has at @Unit_D1. GP, hey, how's it going? I'm seeing way less minus 125 or minus 130 on totals this year. It's like books aren't afraid to move the actual numbers in ways that they were in previous years. What do you make of this? And I make of this the fact that these totals just are not falling on the number as much. There's a reason why I'm much more willing to take like plus 105 on under 9.5 rather than laying minus 110 on a total of 10. It's just because we're noticing in so many of these games so far this year, they're going either way over or way under, and it's because the disparity in bullpens is absolutely insane. Going into this week, we noticed that the LA Angels had the best bullpen in the big leagues. They had an ERA below 2, worst bullpen in the bigs. This is entering this week, by the way, so not as of like yesterday or anything like that, but that was the Washington Nationals. They had an ERA above 8. We are seeing just drastically different pitching styles with so many of these teams because some of their bullpens are all dialed in. They're doing terrific. Some of these, not so much. And we're noticing that the starting pitching has really been erratic as well. So that's why we're seeing some of these totals being not moved as much. You're seeing a lot of the max being 120, sometimes like minus 125, and you're seeing fewer plus prices on these totals, which makes me a little bit sad because that was a way that I was able to make a lot of money last year is just by taking plus prices on totals and mitigating juice. Haven't been able to do so much this year. That has made me a little bit sad. Very good question there. And then we've got one more. This comes in by a gentleman that goes by the name Steve the Greek. You can follow him on Twitter at Steve the Greek 3. Yes, at G_1. Hey, G. You being in the business, what is a good return on investment percentage for baseball picks, being that's more indicative than wins, losses because of the juices just for the MLB? And my answer is I honestly don't know. I just go by units by the end of the year. If I have to lay 1 million units, but in return I can get 250 units, or I can make 200 units by laying 5,000, I would rather be able to get back 250 units. I do not look at return on investment whatsoever. I know that so many people, they use return on investment for their own handicapping, and to those who do, good on ya. I mean, everyone's measure of success is different. Mine is just straight units. I do not care what my return on investment is. As long as I'm making units and I'm making money at the end of the year, that's all I really care about. So sorry to give you a little bit of a weird answer there, but that is essentially where I'm at there. But now let's get into a recap of yesterday's games because we had some interesting ones.
So who's streaking and who is slumping? It is time for Rakers and Fakers.
It was another good day for unders as just 2 games go over the total. I believe that it was officially 2-10-1 depending on what final number you got on the Mets versus the Cardinals game since that game fell on 9. Also Astros versus Rangers, so maybe 2-9-2 perhaps, but either way, unders were very good on this day. The Cincinnati Reds were able to finish off a win in the 11th inning against the San Diego Padres by a count of 3-2. This was an interesting game as the Reds went from the first inning to the 11th inning without scoring a single run. Their lone run was Eugenio Suarez getting a home run in the first inning, and then Fernando Tatis Jr. was able to get a dinger in the third inning. And then with the San Diego Padres, what you had to like to see was Matt Strahm went from being a reliever to a starter this year, pitching 8 strong innings. He only gave up that 1 run, the dinger to Eugenio Suarez. But then it was Stamen who came in the 11th inning and gave up a home run to Dan Diedrich. That was his 5th of the year, and that was big for the Cincinnati Reds as in this one, Anthony DeScalfani was dealing. A guy that I was putting on my pitcher fade list, he might have gotten himself off of it. 6 innings pitch, had 6 strikeouts, gave up just that 1 home run to Fernando Tatis Jr., and then from there, the Cincinnati Reds bullpen goes 5 innings, gives up only 1 run. Zach Duke gave up that run. He now has a 9.95 ERA, but this is a Reds team that all in all getting some good pitching, just not getting the bats going. And speaking of not getting the bats going, the Arizona Diamondbacks, they wind up losing to the Cubs by a count of 5-1. This was an interesting game as the total was 7 because, like I said, the wind was blowing in, but there were 21 men left on base in this one. And I will have to say that Merrill Kelly seems like he is the West Coast version of Chris Archer. He winds up going 3.2 innings, gives up 3 runs, which isn't great, but isn't necessarily awful, but walked 7 batters, racked up his pitch count to 109, just felt like he was trying to strike out the world. He did have 5 strikeouts, but he just seems to be trying to be too perfect for this team, and it just really killed him in this one as the Cubs were able to get a triple out of Anthony Rizzo. That was big for him because going into this game, he wasn't hitting well. He's still only hitting $169, but what you also have to like for the Cubs, Kyle Hendricks, 7 innings pitch, 11 strikeouts in this game. Very, very good sign for the Chicago Cubs. Speaking of good signs, how about the Pittsburgh Pirates getting a 4-1 win over the San Francisco Giants? The Giants offense, once again, not getting the job done. On this day, they did not have a single player in the regular starting lineup that was hitting above 250. Actually, they did have one player, Madison Bumgarner. Out of everyone that started the game, Madison Bumgarner had the highest batting average. That's how bad it is for the San Francisco Giants right now. The Pittsburgh Pirates were able to get 6 strong innings out of Jordan Lyles, who looks like a undervalued pitcher. He has a 0.53 ERA, gave up 4 hits, 0 runs in this one. And Madison Bumgarner, he got a little bit touched up in the beginning of the game. Gives up 4 runs, all of which were earned, and doing the damage for the Pittsburgh Pirates was a variety of guys. including Francisco Cervelli, who was able to come alive for 2 RBI. J.B. Shuck, of all guys, also came up with an RBI, and then you had to like that Jung-Ho Kang was able to get a hit for this team, as well as Melky Cabrera actually went 0 for 4 in this game. He's still hitting .340. He's been doing the job for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And doing the job out there on the East Coast was the Boston Red Sox, who finally got a win as they were able to notch 6 runs in this game. The offense was really able to come alive. Mitch Moreland hit his 6th home run of the year. Christian Vasquez went deep for his 4th, and Mookie Betts in the 8th inning was able to provide the difference maker with a home run to put the team up 5-4, and then Moreland had an insurance home run of his own. That was his 4th of the campaign as the Red Sox were able to belt out 6 hits. For the Tampa Bay Rays, they wound up going with the opener style with Ryan Stanek starting. He went 2 strong innings. Ryan Yarbrough gives up 3, but this is a gentleman that had been so good to begin the year. He has now given up 3 runs in his last 2 outings. Diego Castillo, he winds up giving up those back-to-back home runs to the Boston Red Sox as Brandon Lowe was able to hit a home run for the Tampa Bay Rays. That is his 6th of the year, and we're seeing some chinks in the armor for the Tampa Bay Rays. The offense has actually come alive. Yandy Diaz, Tommy Pham and company doing a good job, but the bullpen has looked a little bit leaky as of late. Something that has not looked leaky recently, the pitching of Chicago White Sox starter Carlos Rodon, as he gave up 1 run in 6 innings as the White Sox got a commanding 7-3 win over the Detroit Tigers. This is a White Sox bullpen that also looks a little bit better. They wound up giving up 2 runs in this one, but all in all, they've been doing a good job. Yohan Moncada was able to go deep for his 6th home run of the year. That was the early one for them, and then they were able to pound out 11 hits. The only player in the lineup that did not get a hit for the Chicago White Sox was Eloy Jimenez. Very good sign there. For the Detroit Tigers, you had to like that Josh Harrison was able to get a home run. That was his 1st of the year. And then Nico Goodrum was able to go deep for his 2nd home run of the year. And then the Tigers, a team that came into this game with just 7 home runs, also got a home run from Grayson Griner. That was his 1st. But the problem was all 3 of those home runs were solo home runs, as the team couldn't really generate any offense from there. So the White Sox, even though they gave up some hard contact, they were able to really limit the damage there. A team that wasn't able to limit the damage was the Washington Nationals, as they lose to the struggling Miami Marlins by a count of 3-2. The Nationals actually had a decent pitching performance from their bullpen. They wound up going 2 2/3 innings and did not give up a run, but Anibal Sanchez gave up 3 runs in 5.1 innings. He didn't look bad in this one, but it was the offense of the Nationals that really couldn't get going. Brian Dozier was able to go deep for his 2nd home run of the year, but we really noticed that the bottom of the lineup was not able to get the job done other than Brian Dozier. Kurt Suzuki was able to generate a hit as well, but Ryan Zimmerman continues to struggle. He's only hitting a .182. And then for the Miami Marlins, the hero in this one for them was a variety of guys. Curtis Granderson, Martin Brado, and Galloway all had RBIs for them. And with the Miami Marlins, they also got a very good start out of Caleb Smith. He had 8 strikeouts in 6 innings, and then from there, the bullpen was able to give up only 1 run in 3 innings, as Sergio Romo, of all guys, was able to shut the door. A guy that has not necessarily been the greatest reliever in the world, but a team that's doing a very good job in all facets of the game with starters and relievers. The Houston Astros, they just completely pulverized the Texas Rangers by a count of 7-2. They got up 3-0 with only 1 out on the board, as Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman were able to hit first inning home runs, and they just did not look back from there. They pounded out 11 hits. Drew Smyly continues to be a pitcher you can't back. 3.2 innings, he gave up 4 runs. He's got to be on your fade list. Now, he did get 8 strikeouts in this game, but it doesn't do a whole lot of good when you give up 102 pitches and 2 dingers. And Jeanmar Gomez out of the bullpen really didn't help him out. In 2/3 of an inning, he wound up giving up 3 runs of his own. So, big time issues for the Texas Rangers, as they did wind up being able to get a couple home runs in this one. Joey Gallo was able to hit his 7th home run of the year, and Danny Santana went deep for his first stinger of the campaign, but Texas Rangers were only able to get 4 hits off of a tremendous Justin Verlander, who once again continues to defy time. He's a pitcher that is an ace, and you got to be continuing to bet on him. And you got to be continuing to bet on the Los Angeles Dodgers. They have now won 7 straight games, as they were able to get a 3-run 8th inning to be able to propel them over the Milwaukee Brewers by a count of 5-3. The hero in this one was Kike Hernandez. He wound up getting a home run in the 8th inning. It was a 3-run dinger, and that was his 5th of the campaign, as the Dodgers had only 7 hits in this game, but they were very timely hits, and they were all from the top of the lineup as well. Cody Bellinger hitting .423 right now. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, they were able to get 2 RBI to Christian Yelich. He now has 29 on the year, and he had his 11th home run of the year in the 1st inning. Eric Thames was able to go deep for his 3rd home run of the year, but for the Milwaukee Brewers, they actually were let down by Josh Hader of all guys. In one inning, he racked up 34 pitches, gave up 3 runs, and it was the dinger that he gave up to Kike Hernandez that was the difference in the game, as Ulysses just seen. After giving up 6 runs to the Dodgers less than a week ago, looked better in his start. He wound up going only 5 innings, gave up 2 runs. Much better than before, not necessarily the great start that you're looking for, but still not bad. And how about the New York Mets? They get a win out of a pitcher that I've been fading in Jason Vargas. 5-4 was final in this one. The Mets were able to get up early. Pete Alonso had a home run in the 6th inning, his 7th of the campaign. That really helped them out. Wilson Ramos was able to drive in 2 RBI. He has been sensational for this team. And Robinson Cano looks to be getting out of his funk. He had 3 hits and 5 at-bats. Meanwhile, for the St. Louis Cardinals, they didn't get a good pitching performance out of Adam Wainwright. He gives up 4 runs in 3 innings, 3 of which were earned. And then from there, the bullpen actually did a pretty decent job. They were able to pitch 6 innings, gave up 1 run. That'll certainly get the job done. And they were able to play a little bit of deep ball in this one, as they were able to get a pair of home runs. Jose Martinez was able to go deep. That was his first home run of the year. And then Lane Thomas was able to deliver a pinch hit home run. I believe that was the first of his career. The Cardinals were able to get 10 hits, but they left 11 men on base. That was a big woe for many teams out there in the big leagues, as if you were salty about that over in the Arizona Diamondbacks versus Chicago Cubs game, 21 men were left on base in that one, which denied you the over. And if you were on the over in the Phillies versus the Colorado Rockies game, man, you can only be shaking your head, as the Rockies were able to get a walk-off win in the 12th inning by a count of 4-3. The difference was a Charlie Blackmon 2-run dinger that went 444 feet, as Bryce Harper put the team up 3-2 in the 12th inning. But the Phillies, they had so many opportunities and they missed them. They left 19 men on base and went 1 of 16 with men in scoring position. They had 17 hits in this one. Maikel Franco had 3 hits. Rhys Hoskins had 3 hits. Bryce Harper had 5 hits, but they were just unable to cash in, as the Colorado Rockies, they were the textbook definition of bend but don't break. German Marquez winds up giving up 2 runs in 5 innings in his start, gives up 10 hits, and then every reliever except for So-Oh gave up at least 1 hit in this one, but they just continued to be able to get out after out. You got to give the Rockies a lot of credit. They too only went 1 of 11 with men in scoring position, but that home run by Blackmon, his first of the year, was huge, and then Trevor Story was able to hit his 5th dinger of the year. That was also the difference in the game. So that was a wild and crazy result. We had another wild one with the Seattle Mariners and the LA Angels. It looked like the Seattle Mariners were going to try to blow it, as they give up a 3-1 lead in the 8th inning, as being able to tie up the game in the 8th was Mike Trout with a home run. That was his 6th of the campaign, but then the Seattle Mariners were able to get 2 runs of their own in the 9th inning, as Tim Beckham and Omar Narvaez go back-to-back with their home runs. Also providing a deep ball was Jay Bruce. That was his 9th. Beckham had his 5th. And then Daniel Vogelbach also had a home run. That was his 7th home run of the campaign, as the Seattle Mariners just continued to generate a whole bunch of power. And for the LA Angels, they got another nice game out of Mike Trout with that home run. I will say that Daniel Fletcher is coming out for this team. He won 3 of 3. At the plate, he's now hitting above 300, but Felix Pena did not deliver a good start. He wound up giving up 3 runs in 5 innings. And then it was Cody Allen, who just continues to be a shell of himself from what he was in past years. He wound up giving up those back-to-back jacks in the 9th inning. He now has a 4.91 ERA, and he's been really the woe for a very good LA Angels bullpen. The Toronto Blue Jays are providing a lot of value to a lot of bettors right now, as they were able to get another upset win. They win this one by a count of 5-1. They scored all their runs in the first 4 innings of the game, as Danny Jansen was able to provide a pair of RBI. They got Brandon Drury to finally go deep. That was his first home run of the year. And for the Oakland A's, they wound up going 0 for 5 with men in scoring position. Aaron Brooks wound up giving up 5 runs in 5 innings. He did not have his best start. But hey, if you're looking for an encouraging time with the A's, Fernando Rodney, who was voted on my Twitter poll as the guy that you want to see the least in the 9th inning if you have a 1-run lead, he wound up pitching a scoreless 8th, and Joaquin Soria wound up being able to deliver a scoreless inning as well. So that's obviously a good sign. But with that said, Matt Chapman was the only guy that was able to drive in a run for the A's. And then the Yankees were able to get on track with a nice 6-2 win over the Kansas City Royals. The Royals were able to get out to a 1-0 lead, but the Yankees were able to get a bunch of deep balls in this one. Brett Gardner wound up having his 5th home run of the year, and then Mike Tauchman also went deep for his 2nd home run of the year, as they got another quality start out of CC Sabathia. He went 5 innings, gave up 1 run, but it was an unearned run. The 4 walks are a little bit of a concern, but all in all, CC Sabathia doing a very good job, and the bullpen was able to go 4 innings, giving up only 1 run. So some good signs out there for the Yankees, and some good signs for some power teams like the Red Sox, like the Chicago Cubs. These teams seem to be getting back on track, and getting us on track with a little bit more knowledge in regards to the baseball betting board is going to be my good friend Joe Rivera out there with Sporting News, and he joins me next right here on MLB Overtime Betting.
Greg is going to the bullpen as he makes a call to the Azuña hotline.
And we're back here on MLB Overtime Betting. Greg Peterson broadcasting from the Azuña Tequila Studios out here in beautiful Las Vegas. Great pleasure to be joined by our next guest. He is a terrific reporter out there for the Sporting News. You can sometimes catch him on many of their live feeds as well. He does a little bit of everything out there covering the world of baseball, and he can be found on Twitter at Joe Rivera SN. That is his name, Joe Rivera, and then the letters S and N. It is Joe Rivera joining me. And Joe, how are you doing on this fine day?
Greg, I'm doing fantastic. How are you, friend?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining me. And a team that's doing fantastic. How about the Chicago Cubs? They're able to get a win on Friday. This is a team that began the year, if I remember correctly, 1-6. Things were not going well. Bullpen looked absolutely atrocious. They've gotten up off the mat. They've really been pulling out some nice wins. What has turned the tide for the Cubs, because I know that John Lester is currently on the injured list. Not all of their key pitchers are currently in the lineup. We've noticed Anthony Rizzo and company struggling, and yet they're finding ways to win all of a sudden.
I think a big part of it, Greg, is just situational hitting. This is a team that a few years ago, they were just so good when it came to working counts and knowing when to be aggressive, knowing when to take pitches. I think you're starting to see some of that again. They're not really a team that is built around being aggressive hitters. They have lots of good hitters. Javi Baez put the team on his back. Chris Bryant is showing signs of life. It's his first multi-hit game I know he had in like a week and a half. So, yeah, this is a team they're starting to show signs of life offensively, and I think that's a big key. I also think, though, that they're going to need to see more from Yu Darvish. He wasn't great. He hasn't been great this year. I know some of that is rust. Maybe some of it is just ineffectiveness. But yeah, I think what you're seeing now is an offense starting to come alive, knowing how to get the big hit when they really need it, and that's been key for them.
Timely hitting, I feel like, is so key for so many teams, and a couple teams out there that have gotten some timely hitting include teams like the Milwaukee Brewers and the Seattle Mariners. I feel like out of all the teams out there in the big leagues, the Mariners have been the biggest surprise so far this year. Now, things got a little bit airy on Thursday when they gave up a 7 spot to the Los Angeles Angels, but nevertheless, they were able to get the win. How big of a surprise has this been to you? Because the Seattle Mariners, one of the top offenses out there in the big leagues, 1 through 9, it feels like everyone has the power to go deep on this team. Maybe aside from Malik Smith, but he does a good job of getting on in general, and I've really been surprised by this team.
Yeah, I agree with you, Greg. I am very surprised, too. And I was actually on the Zone show Change Up on Monday night, and I said I'll have to offer Jerry Dipoto an apology because after 4 years of constant reimagining of lineups, it really seemed like there was no clear focus, no goal, no clear focus on offense. We'll just leave it at that. When it comes to what they wanted to be offensively, you saw, yeah, they had some good hitters, but they didn't really have that staple, that trademark. And I think power and speed is what they've been working with this year. And Domingo Santana, who they traded for from Milwaukee, has been a revelation for them. He's been fantastic. Jay Bruce has only like 12 hits on the season, but 8 of them are home runs or some ridiculous ratio. So they're a team that's really focused on power, and it's working out for them. I'm really surprised. Marco Gonzalez is very good for them. I think the pitching is still a big question mark. I think the bullpen is still a bit of a question mark, but offensively they can swing the stick with the best of them. And that's what you've been seeing so far.
We've got Joe Rivera joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting, does a great job with Sporting News, and is joining me right now. And I think he said it so well. That trade for Domingo Santana really has been a difference maker for the Seattle Mariners. And in a way, I feel like it worked out well for the Milwaukee Brewers as well, because with the Brewers, they just weren't able to use them. They had so many pieces, that I actually mentioned the Brewers just a minute ago as well. And Ben Gamble's been able to come in. He's been able to be a little bit of a platoon outfielder for this team. And we noticed all the Brewers being able to get off to a pretty good start. Obviously, they've fallen back to earth a little bit, couple losses against the St. Louis Cardinals and the Dodgers the past couple days, but I do think the outlook for the Brewers is good with Jeremy Jeffries getting back.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that bullpen is still really good with Josh Hader at the back end. Offensively, whenever you're anchored by an MVP candidate like Christian Yelich, I don't think you really have to worry about much there. I think the rotation is still a bit of a question mark. If they decide to go out and sign a Dallas Keuchel, who knows what that's going to be. I know that's been a little bit of a rumor lately. I think the problem with signing pitchers this late is you kind of have to worry about their effectiveness, how long it's going to take them to get to game speed when you're signing this late in the season. So I like the Brewers a lot. I still think they're probably going to win that division this year just based on that bullpen. But outside of that lineup that's so good in the bullpen, I think the rotation is still the biggest question mark for them.
I certainly agree with you there, and a big question mark that we have right now is Corey Kluber. He was supposed to pitch on Friday, but obviously game got rained out against the Atlanta Braves, but he just hasn't looked like his normal self. But I do feel like all in all things are starting to turn around for the Cleveland Indians. We noticed that over the past, I would say 7 days, Carlos Gonzalez and Jason Kipnis went back into the lineup. What is your long-term outlook for the Indians? Because they didn't get off to a good start on offense, but something else I've also noticed with this team that was certainly not the case last year, bullpen has been really good for them. Top 5 in regards to bullpen ERA so far this year.
Yeah, I think the Indians have 2 big benefits for them. The first is their top 3 starters between Carrasco, Kluber, and Bauer are all very good. Obviously, we know Kluber has struggled to start the year, but Bauer and Carrasco are still pretty good. So you kind of have a fallback there. If one of those guys isn't pitching great, you still have 2 more that can kind of pick up the slack. I think the other big benefit they have is that their division is awful. And I understand Twins have gotten off to a pretty good start. They were in the lead in the Central for a while there. But I don't see them staying. I don't see them lasting in that division. It's tough for me to see. I know they have a really good offense, but their rotation is just full of question marks outside of Jose Barrios. And Michael Pineda, while he got off to a pretty decent start, he's still a major question mark because of his injury history and his just general ineffectiveness and inconsistencies in his past. So I think that you look at the Indians and you just look at their offense is good, especially with Lindor coming back soon. That's going to help them a lot. But I also think that they're kind of flimsy. And by that I mean it's not really a deep lineup. You look top to bottom. It's not, if one of these guys gets hurt like we saw with Lindor, then the rest of that lineup is going to struggle. They're going to need all guys 1 through 9 to really pick it up, to stay in that race and keep those runs up.
Absolutely. We've got Joe Rivera joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting, and another team out there in the American League that hasn't necessarily been great on offense. How about the Boston Red Sox? What the heck has happened to this team? After winning the World Series last year, they just have not been very good. Going into Friday, Brock Holt, Eduardo Nunez, Dustin Pedroia, all on the 10-day injured list. On Saturday, they've got Rick Porcello on the mound, and Rick Porcello is going to be entering this game with a whip of 3. It just feels like it's a myriad of issues for the Boston Red Sox. You've got a bunch of guys that are not hitting well. Mookie Betts hitting right around 200. Jackie Bradley Jr. under 200. Rick Porcello and guys of that ilk just not getting the job done in pitching. What has all happened for this team so far this year? Because they were so good last year, and this year they've just started off really, really bad.
Yeah, I wish I had an answer for you. I think up until Friday, we kind of said to ourselves, and I said a lot that, this is a team that actually has the benefit of health right now. So you figured if they're going to get going, they can turn it around. JD Martinez has been the best offensively on that team. Mookie Betts hasn't gotten off to a good start at all. Just top to bottom, it hasn't worked for them for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. I really don't know. It's weird looking at this team and trying to figure out what exactly is going wrong, because all in all, it's pretty much the same team as they had from last year, just without Craig Kimbrell. So it's tough for me to really say, well, this is what's happening here. No, they have all their guys. History tells us that they should be hitting, but they're just not. So maybe you can chalk it up to World Series hangover. I think that's part of it. I think you can't really point to the division either, because the Yankees haven't gotten off to a good start themselves, and the only team in that division that's giving anybody a run for their money right now are the Rays. So, I wish I could point to something for the Red Sox and say, well, this is what's happening here. It's just the fact that nobody's hitting, which is the biggest issue, and I don't know why that is, and I don't think they really know what's happening there either.
It's been really interesting to see what's happening there, but something that we're seeing that is a little bit of a turnaround in the opposite way, the Colorado Rockies, they got off to a really bad start to be able to begin the year, but going into Friday, this was a team that was riding a 4-game win streak. On Saturday, they've got Antonio Senzatello going on the mound against Aaron Nola, a guy that even though he's going to be entering this contest 1-0, has really seen a little bit of a regression so far this year. What have you seen out of the Rockies these last couple of days that have allowed them to turn it around? Because I noticed that Nolan Arenado got off to a really bad start. He has 3 straight home runs now. It just feels like this team in general is starting to click, especially with Ryan McMahon back in the lineup.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think part of it is they lose DJ LeMahieu, who's their big contact guy, and I think that hurt their lineup a little bit more than what they were kind of expecting. Offensively, they were terrible to start the year. Through their first 11 or 12 games, they had only scored 45 runs on the year, which is very un-Colorado-like. And make no mistake, I know that they have the benefit of playing in Colorado in the thin air, but at the same time, they're a team that hits everywhere. Don't understand what was happening there, really. Again, Nolan Arenado has kind of gotten off to these slow starts in the past, so we shouldn't really be surprised there. But yeah, Colorado's starting to hit. I think that helps. The biggest question with them has always been pitching, and I think with the bullpen, they're going to have to rebound. They're going to have to keep the momentum going, especially after an awful 2018. They sunk so much money into that bullpen between McGee, Wade Davis, and Brian Shaw, and all 3 guys last year were absolutely terrible. Asking for those 3 to have a big turnaround this year, I think it's fair just given their track record, and they'll figure something out there. But I do like Colorado. I think that if they can keep the offense up, they probably have a shot at a wild card, maybe not the division. I still think the Dodgers are the cream of the crop there.
I do agree with you there, as we've got Joe Rivera joining me right here on the podcast, and I mentioned it a little bit with Aaron Nola being a little bit of a struggling ace, and we've got actually a couple struggling aces going on the bump on Saturday. I mentioned Aaron Nola. We've also got Jacob deGrom, who has been uncharacteristically bad in his last 2 starts. He's out 2-2 with a 3.68 ERA. Max Scherzer has a losing record, though I think that both of us can chalk this up to the Washington Nationals bullpen because his ERA is below a 3.5 as well. But we've been noticing a lot of aces struggling so far this year. I mentioned Corey Kluber. He's likely going to be going on Saturday with that game being rained out on Friday. Why do you think it is that so many star pitchers have gotten off to a little bit of a rough start so far this year?
It's a good question, and I'll tell you what, I think we might have an answer on Jacob deGrom because it was revealed today he's going to get an MRI on his elbow, which has been bothering me, which isn't good news if you're a Mets fan. The start was pushed back because he allegedly had strep throat, so if that was the real reason and not actually strep elbow, if that's a thing, but it's a good question. I mean, deGrom, he wasn't himself, which is kind of tough to see because after such a long period of dominance for him, he's looked human, which is very un-deGrom-like. Kluber is another question mark. I know with Kluber, the second that his mechanics get a little off, he's a guy that relies so much on movement and location. The second his mechanics or his stuff gets a little off, he's going to get hammered. That's just the nature of the way he is as a pitcher. He doesn't have the stuff to try and overpower guys. He's always been that kind of guy. And Aaron Nola, the Phillies are going to really need him to get right, man. And nobody's asking Nola to be a 10-win player like he was last year because he had an excellent year. Any other year that deGrom isn't Jacob deGrom, he probably wins Cy Young, but he had such a great year last year. They're going to need him to be better. Simply put, this Phillies team can't rely on Jake Arrieta at the top of that rotation, just given his age and given his injury history and his inconsistencies and throughout his career. So again, I wish I had an answer for you. I'm not a medical staff. I'm not a pitching coach to really look at these things. You figure some guys are always going to struggle a little early in the year to try and find their release points, try and find their mechanics. I know we saw that with Chris Sale, and he's still trying to figure out a little bit. His velocity's down, but yeah, it's really weird what's happening in baseball. A lot of these pitchers and a lot of these bullpens too. A lot of these relief pitchers just aren't what teams were expecting them to be.
Oh, yes, you can say that again on the bullpens. And Joe, is there anything else that's really stuck out to you so far this year? Because we mentioned a lot of things, the aces that are struggling, some of the surprise teams and anything like that. Anything else that's really stuck out to you that maybe hasn't necessarily been as prevalent to maybe the general public that you've been noticing so far this year?
I'm going to keep it on the East Coast, and I'm going to keep my East Coast bias here. But, I'm looking at the Yankees right now, and the problem with the Yankees, not so much the injuries. I understand you look at their list, Giancarlo Stanton, Gary Sanchez, Miguel Andujar. I mean, those are all, it sucks to lose those guys if you're a Major League Baseball team, no doubt. But at the same time, it's the guys that are healthy that they're really relying on that haven't been good. Adam Ottavino's been up and down for them. He's been overall pretty good. He's been up and down. Chad Green hasn't really been great for them this year. James Paxton, before his start versus Boston, he had 3 really mediocre starts. And they're really relying on him now with Luis Severino out to kind of be that ace or that really, really good number 2. And he hasn't been that. Jay Happ is another guy that the Yankees were really relying on, and he came out and stunk his first few starts of the year. Then you got to look at first base, where Luke Voit, and we know what happened with Greg Bird. He's hurt again, and who knows if this is the end for Greg Bird, but Luke Voit hasn't really been great either outside of the power. So, you kind of have to look up and down at the Yankees, and while the injuries hurt, at the same time, you can't go out to a really bad Royals team and lose a game at home after beating your division rival Red Sox 2 in a row. That just can't happen if you're the Yankees.
Absolutely. And going into that game, teams that were started by Homer Bailey were 2-21 in their last 23 games, and the Royals won that game very handily, with Homer Bailey looking like a Cy Young candidate. Just absolutely inexcusable there. And Joe, I'd like to close it up with this. Where could the good people out there find you on social media and elsewhere?
You can find me on Twitter at Joe Rivera SN. You can find all my stuff on sportingnews.com through my author page. That's where you'll find all the latest and greatest.
Fantastic. A big thanks to Joe Rivera of Sporting News for joining me in the last segment. And coming up next, it is that time they give you a side and total on every game on the betting board for Saturday, and a little something I like to call Touch 'em All.
Hey, I'm Steve Heitner, the guy who uttered the famous phrase, "That's gold." And that's the inspiration of my new podcast, That's Gold with Steve Heitner. We talk sports, sports betting, movies, comedy, food, drink, Vegas, music, movies, and more. 5 days a week. Did I say movies twice? Look, guys love it, whether they're hip or worried about breaking a hip. Find us on Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify and Stitcher. That's Gold with me, Steve Heitner.
Welcome back to MLB Overtime. Greg is throwing a gem, so yeah, he better not blow it.
And a big thanks to Joe Rivera for joining me in the last segment, as we're back here in the Zuniga Studios for MLB Overtime Betting. And now, even though we've got a lot of games for Saturday off the board, it's time for me to do my best to give you a side and total on every game that is listed on the Vegas betting board in a little something I like to call Touch 'em All.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch 'em all.
Note that any off-the-board plays are going to be listed in the morning on my Twitter page at gunit_81, and then there are some games I have all locked in, all good to go. There are other games I'm still in wait-and-see mode on the numbers, and then I do recognize that we're going to have 2 doubleheaders tomorrow. These are going to be between the Minnesota Twins and the Baltimore Orioles, and the Atlanta Braves and the Cleveland Indians. As of right now, those games aren't even on the Vegas rotation order. They will be listed in the morning, though. Those will probably be games 981, 982, 983, 984. I'm just not able to give you anything because as of right now, we don't have listed starters or anything like that, but I'll be able to give you some insight on the actual lineups when we get to those games. So just note that. And we start with 951, 952 on the betting rotation, as we've got the New York Mets in St. Louis to face off against the Cardinals. We know that Miles Mikolas is going to be going for the St. Louis Cardinals, with Jacob deGrom getting an MRI, which I just found out literally when we were doing that interview with Joe Rivera. Truth be told, to let you in behind the curtain, I did that interview right around, I would say, 3 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern. It literally just broke, and that means that we currently have no starter for the Mets, and that means that we have no number up on the board in regards to a side or a total. I'm scouring Twitter as to who the starter is going to be for the New York Mets. As of right now, it's a big, giant question mark. I can tell you right now, if we're getting any sort of a total below 10, I'm going to be taking this over, though. Miles Mikolas, to begin the year, has not necessarily been the pitcher that he was last year. And with the New York Mets, something that we do know with them is that guys like Corey Oswalt and company, guys that come in for long relief of the bullpen, total gas cans. This is probably a spot where I'm going to be looking at the St. Louis Cardinals run line, and I'm going to be looking at this game over. Both these teams have some good mashers. Going into Friday, Marcell Ozuna, 8 home runs, 16 RBI, hitting .290. Paul DeJong was really able to get things going with the bat. He's getting on base with a .342 average. Then you take a look at Paul Goldschmidt. Not necessarily hitting for average right now, but he's doing a good job of being able to generate some power. Colton Wong was hot towards the beginning of the year. He's cooled down a little bit, but Yadier Molina seems to be rounding into form with the bat. And the New York Mets themselves have been putting up quite a few runs. Pete Alonso going into Friday, 6 home runs, 17 RBI, hitting above 300. Wilson Ramos hitting above 300. Jeff McNeil hitting over 400. Robinson Cano has been struggling, but you've been able to get those guys towards the bottom of the lineup like Amid Rosario. They're doing a good job of being able to get on base. And Miles Mikolas so far this year, 6 ERA, 1.38 whip. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to walk a whole bunch of guys, but it's not like his fastball is so electric that he could just get a whole bunch of swing and miss strikeouts, because we've noticed so far this year he's only got 14 strikeouts in 21 innings. The 5 walks isn't necessarily a concern, but he's just getting hit, and he's getting hit hard. So I think that the Mets are going to be able to score quite a few runs, but I think the Cardinals, against a Mets team that I think is going to be using a mismatch of players out of the bullpen, should be able to rake in this one. Like I said, though, there's no official number up on this game, though, so check back in the morning on my Twitter page at @GUnited81 for plays on that game. 9:53, 9:54 on the betting rotation. The Arizona Diamondbacks head to Chicago to face off against the Cubs. Yu Darvish goes for the Chicago Cubs. Zach Greinke for the Arizona Diamondbacks. There is no total up on this game because it is all going to be dependent on the wind. We saw on Friday the wind was gusting inwards at like 25 miles an hour, so obviously that can make a big impact, but we do have a spread on this game in regards to sides. It is currently the Arizona Diamondbacks anywhere between a plus 115 and plus 120 underdog. Meanwhile, if you like the Cubs, you're going to be laying anywhere between minus 125 and minus 130. This is a spot where I do have to take a look at the Arizona Diamondbacks. I know that Zach Greinke isn't what he once was. It seems like he's had a little bit of a dip in velocity, but with the way that he's able to locate, I think that he's able to overcome that. He hasn't been himself so far this year. 5.79 ERA, hasn't necessarily been dishing out the free passes, but this is going to be essentially a fade of Yu Darvish. He's 1-2 this year, 6.11 ERA. He looked better in his last start, but this is a guy that has no command whatsoever. We saw the Diamondbacks only being able to generate 1 run against the Cubs yesterday, and ironically enough, that was in the 9th inning, but I do feel like this is a team that's going to be able to overcome that slow day yesterday and really get up off the mat. David Peralta hitting .361 for the year. He hasn't necessarily had the home run power, but he's been doing a good job of being able to get on base. Adam Jones and Christian Walker in the middle of the lineup, also hitting above 300. Nick Ahmad towards the bottom of the lineup has been doing a good job of being able to get on. And Ketel Marte, though the team was struggling yesterday, he was able to get 2 hits, including a bunt hit. Very heady player right there. And for the Cubs, you've got a bunch of guys that are doing a great job of hitting as well. Javi Baez hitting above 300, 6 home runs, 16 RBI. Jason Hayward hitting above 300 along with Daniel Descalso. Anthony Rizzo, I feel like that triple with him yesterday was able to get him jump-started and going. Bodie has been doing a great job in the infield as well. This is a total that I'll look to take over as long as we don't have harebrained win, just because I do feel like Zach Greinke's at a little bit of an advanced age, and Yu Darvish is Yu Darvish, and because Yu Darvish is Yu Darvish, I'm going to take a shot here on the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think the bats wake up in this one. I think that a little bit of Yu is exactly what they needed. So, going to be on the Arizona Diamondbacks in this spot and wait-and-see mode on the total since, let's face it, it's just not up on the board. 9:55, 9:56 on the betting rotation. It is the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they are at home facing off against the San Francisco Giants. Derek Holland takes a bump for the Giants. Jameson Taillon goes for the Pittsburgh Pirates. The total on this game is 7.5 and is shaded under. Under is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120, and the over is anywhere between even juice and minus 105. If you like the Pittsburgh Pirates, laying anywhere between minus 150 and minus 155. If you like the Giants, you're getting anywhere between plus 140 and plus 143. I just have a tough time backing Derek Holland. He's been better the past year and a half than he was in some of his previous stops, but he's been a journeyman pitcher that really has never really found himself. So far this year, he's 1-2 with a 4.09 ERA, which really isn't too bad. I will give him that. But he's being backed up by a team that just can't really generate any hits for him. And with Derek Holland, he does have a big issue with the free passes. 12 walks in 22 innings so far this year. He's been able to limit hard contact, which you really gotta like. But with the Pittsburgh Pirates, I think that they're going to be able to take advantage of those walks, because this is a team that they haven't been doing the best job of being able to get on base as well. Josh Bell has really been the leader for this team. He's hitting .310, 3 home run, 13 RBI. Melky Cabrera hitting over .360 right now. He's been great, but Jung Ho Kang just has not been what the team expected. With the Pittsburgh Pirates, they've been able to get a little bit of production at the top of the lineup out of Adam Frazier. He's hitting .274 going into Friday's action, and then Colin Moran has been a nice little platoon player, but Sterling Marte needs to pick it up. He's only hitting just above 200. Francisco Cervelli is hitting below 200. This is a team that's a little bit banged up as well, is currently on the 10-day injured list for the Pittsburgh Pirates. You've got Nick Franklin and Jorge Polanco, so obviously that's not good. And Lonnie Chisenhall as well. Got to throw him in there. But when you take a look at the San Francisco Giants, who's going to be able to hit for this team? They were able to score a couple runs in that series against the Washington Nationals, but man, things have not been going well. This looks like a team that you'd really want in 2012, not a team that you'd want right now. Steven Gduger hitting .238. Tyler Austin, who they acquired last week, is their best hitter at .308. Kevin Pillar, .208. Brandon Belt, .231. Gerardo Parra, up to .232. Whoopoo! Evan Longoria, .219. Brandon Crawford, .203. Solarte, .186. Eric Kratz, .136. That is but ugly. I think that Jameson Taillon should be able to have a field day. I think Derek Holland gets shelled in this game. Now, I do think the Giants are going to be able to find a way to scratch across a run or two. I just can't see guys like Buster Posey and Evan Longoria just continuing to just continue to be as bad as they have been all year long. But with that said, I just think that this sets up for failure for the San Francisco Giants. So for that reason, I'm not just going to look at the Pirates on the money line. I'm going to take a look at them on the run line. Currently, I am seeing a price of plus 140, currently in wait-and-see mode there, but I've already locked in over 7.5 at even juice, and to clear something up with the Diamondbacks game, already locked in their plus price of 120. Just want to do a little bit of housekeeping there, but in regards to this game, going to be on the Pirates run line, just waiting to see if I can get more of a plus 145, but I've already locked in the over on this game. We move on to 957, 958 on the betting rotation. The Washington Nationals are in Miami to face off against the Marlins. Jose Urena goes for the Miami Marlins. Max Scherzer on the bump for the Washington Nationals. If you like the Miami Marlins, you're getting a big plus price, anywhere between plus 195 and plus 205. Meanwhile, if you want to lay it with Max Scherzer and company, between minus 220 and minus 230. Total in this game is 7, and it is very evenly shaded. Minus 110 on the over, minus 110 on the under. This is a spot where I do have to take a look at the over. I know that the Miami Marlins, well, they're really not hitting so far this year. Let's just be honest here. And Max Scherzer is still Max Scherzer, but Scherzer hasn't quite been himself so far this year. He enters into this game with a 1-2 record, and a lot of this is not his fault. His ERA is right around a 3.334. He maybe has been not quite as dominant as he has been in the past, but he's still obviously a terrific pitcher. But we actually did see Jose Urena look a whole heck of a lot better in his last start after just getting shelled time and time again. He looked very good on Sunday against the Phillies. He wound up getting a no decision, allowing 1 run and 7 hits, and I believe it was 7 innings. So that was actually a very good sign. He was a very tough luck loser last year. He had a tough time locating earlier in the year. He seems to have righted the ship. And then with the Nationals, you've got some guys that are doing a good job of being able to hit. Going into Friday, Anthony Rendon was hitting .379 with 6 home runs, 18 RBI. Juan Soto has also been picking it up with the bat. He seems to be hitting a couple dingers, and it's been big for this team that Howie Kendrick is back in the lineup. He's been doing a good job of being able to make some good solid contact and being able to get on base, which is something that they lacked a little bit because Wilmer Defoe just not doing a great job of being able to get on base. Perhaps that home run that he had a couple days ago against the San Francisco Giants will get things kick-started. Ryan Zimmerman entered Friday hitting below 200 along with Brian Dozier, so both those guys have underachieved a little bit. Though I will say that Adam Eaton hitting above 300 is also good for this team. But for the Miami Marlins, I do think that you're finding that Neil Walker is starting to get things going. Those 3 RBIs are off of 3 solo home runs. It is 3 home runs regardless. Miguel Rojas recently got back in the lineup. He's hitting just below 300. That's been a good addition for this team. And then Austin Dean looked very good in a game last week in which he was able to have 4 RBI against the Philadelphia Phillies. He's been struggling ever since then, but you got to think that he might be able to get things kick-started for him. And then Jose Alfaro was out of the lineup for a few days at the catcher spot. He's hitting right around 300. He should be able to generate some offense as well. And Lewis Brinson seems to be getting some fewer starts right now as Isaac Galloway seems to be taking his place at center field, who is a little bit of a better hitter. Neither of these guys are necessarily going to rake, but you got to think that one of these guys are going to be able to pick it up, and they need it, especially with Sterling Castro and Curtis Granderson right now ice cold. But I do think that the Miami Marlins are going to do just enough to be able to get into a Nationals bullpen that is the worst in the big leagues right now, and it's going to lead to an over. And I'm going to take a shot here on the Miami Marlins. It is a massive plus price, and I'm currently in wait-and-see mode on that plus price, and also trying to see if I can get a little bit of better juice on the over as well. See if this gets down to more around even money or minus 105, given that Max Scherzer is on the mound. We move on to 9:59, 9:60 on the betting rotation. It is the LA Dodgers in Milwaukee to face off against the Brewers. Hyun-Jin Ryu goes for the LA Dodgers. For the Milwaukee Brewers, our favorite pitcher, undecided. And what that means is that this game is currently off the board. I was reading through the grapevine known as Twitter, and for the Milwaukee Brewers, well, at this point, it could be anyone. It could be Junior Guerra, it could be Aaron Wilkerson, Adrian Hauser, who just got sent up to the majors because Corbin Burns has been sent to AAA to pitch for the San Antonio Missions. Yep, we got to break out the Old English accent, as that has caused for some ripples with the Milwaukee Brewers pitching staff. It could be Chase Anderson. At this point, we don't know, but that means that the LA Dodgers are probably going to be a hefty favorite in this one. And this is a spot where I'm either going to be taking the Brewers at a plus price, because I actually think that if they send out their Chase Anderson, they have a good chance of being able to win this game. I actually like Chase Anderson as a starter. If they send out their Adrian Hauser, that's something I want absolutely no part of whatsoever. And then the total is really going to have to depend on the starter, because we know with both the Dodgers and the Brewers, they are doing a tremendous job of being able to hit the ball. Cody Bellinger and Christian Yelich heading into Friday's action were both hitting 10 home runs. They're both the best hitters in the game. But with the Milwaukee Brewers, you've got a couple guys that are struggling. Going into Friday, Ryan Braun was hitting below 200. Eric Thames hasn't really gotten things done with the bat. Jesus Aguilar has been absolutely awful. He's hitting right around $150 right now. Though I will say Orlando Arcia is picking things up with the bat. Ben Gamble, not necessarily the greatest in regards to average, but he had a 350 OBP going into Friday, and Travis Shaw also struggling out there. But when you've got Lorenzo Cain and Mike Moustakas starting to hit, that really rights the ship. And then with the Dodgers, they've got a bunch of guys that are just doing great along with Cody Bellinger. AJ Pollock seems to be picking it back up along with Max Muncy. How about the story Alex Verdugo is putting together so far this year? Going into Friday, hitting .364, 3 home runs, 12 RBI. He has been terrific. Austin Barnes has been a little bit cold, and Jock Peterson in regards to average has been cold, but he's been picking up the power, and we all know about Justin Turner. So this is a game in which you really just have to take a look at the total when it comes out. I'm probably going to be leaning towards Dodgers run line if it's not Chase Anderson. If it is Chase Anderson, I might take a look at a plus price, but as of right now, I'm just in wait-and-see mode, because not knowing a starter with the Milwaukee Brewers makes it very hard to try to handicap this game. My apologies. But we do move on to a game that I can handicap, 961, 962 on the betting rotation. The Philadelphia Phillies are in Colorado to face off against the Rockies. Antonio Senzatella goes for the Rockies. Aaron Supernova for the Philadelphia Phillies. Total in this game is 10.5, and it is shaded over. The over is anywhere between -110 and -120. The under is anywhere between even juice and -110. If you like the Philadelphia Phillies here, you're going to be laying anywhere between -120 and -127. Want to take a shot here on the Rockies? You're going to be getting anywhere between +110 and +117. Antonio Senzatella looked very good at his first start of the year against the San Diego Padres. I believe they gave up just 1 run in that game. He was very, very good, but this is a spot where I do have to take a look at the Philadelphia Phillies, just because they do have so many guys that do such a great job of hitting. I know that Bryce Harper has went a little bit cold, and things aren't going quite as well for Maikel Franco as they were at the beginning of the year, but you still just take a look up and down the lineup. You've got Gene Segura, JT Realmuto, Andrew McCutchen. The list of guys that can hit go on and on. And with the Colorado Rockies, they've been kicking up their bats as well. You got to think that the 3 home runs in 3 games that Nolan Arenado hit were much needed for him. Trevor Story seems to be picking it up with the average. David Dahl is now back in the lineup after he was on the 10-day injured list. Prior to going on the injured list, he was sensational. He's still hitting over 300 for the year. That is much needed. And then Tapia out there in left field has also been great for this team, hitting .268. And Ryan McMahon came off the injured list in grand fashion on Thursday, going for 5 RBI and 2 home runs. That is exactly what the Colorado Rockies needed, but I do think that the Phillies are going to be able to get a good spot in this game out of Aaron Nola. He struggled so far this year. He's 1-0, but his ERA is above 7. He just hasn't been the same Aaron Nola that he was last year, but I think that he's going to be able to get on track in this one, because you can tell that the plus stuff is still there. He's got 19 strikeouts and 19.1 innings so far this year, but he's just been issuing too many free passes, 11 walks in 19 innings. You take a look at what he did last year, it was just a complete opposite of that, as opponents were hitting just 197 off of him, 58 walks walks in 212 and a third innings. You got to think that he's going to be able to find his form. I think he's going to be able to do so against a Rockies team that has a bunch of hit or miss bats, because while I mentioned all those guys are doing great, guys like Charlie Blackmon and company, there are a couple guys out there that just aren't really holding up their end of the bargain, and I think the Phillies are going to be able to win a little bit of a lower scoring game, because I do think that Senzatella is going to have another quality outing in this one. I don't think he's going to quite give up one run like he did in the last game, but I think he's going to be able to give them a serviceable outing in this one. So for that reason, I'm going to be taking the Philadelphia Phillies, and I've already locked them in, and I've already locked in under 10.5 at even juice. I think that this is a game that the Phillies should win by a count of something like 5-3, somewhere in that neighborhood. Gonna go with the Phillies, gonna go under, and we're all locked in there. 963 and 964 on the betting rotation. The Cincinnati Reds are in San Diego to face off against the Padres. Eric Lauer goes on the bump for the Padres. Luis Castillo for the Reds. If you like the Reds, you're going to be laying minus 115, as it is plus 105 across the board with the Padres. Typically, you don't see this much agreement between the books. Perhaps it's a trap. And of course, I'm just being facetious. And then we're seeing a total on this game of 7.5, and it's shaded under. Under is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 125, which makes the over anywhere between minus 105 and plus 105, so you're able to get a little bit of a plus price on that over. I'm looking at this total under, and I'm currently in wait-and-see mode to try to see if I can get minus 110 on the juice. Luis Castillo has just been lights out for the Cincinnati Reds so far this year. In 4 starts, he hasn't really been getting a whole lot of decisions, but you know what? He's certainly been doing his part, as he's currently 1-1, 1.46 ERA, 0.89 whip. This is a star in the making right here. He's been doing a great job with this stuff. Very electric fastball. And I just can't trust Eric Lauer here. Eric Lauer is a decent starter. He's 2-2 with a 4.91 ERA, but he just seems to lend himself a little bit too much to hard contact, and this is a Reds team that they haven't been doing a good job with their average, but they've got a couple guys that can bop the ball out of the ballpark, and right now this year, Eric Lauer has been allowing opponents to hit 287 off of him. He does a good job of being able to limit walks, but I think the Reds are going to be able to generate a little bit of power in this game. Jesse Winkler heads into Friday's action hitting below 200, but he has 5 home run, 9 RBI on the year. You got to think at some point Eugenio Suarez is going to be able to pick things up. Joey Votto was able to get a home run on Thursday. Perhaps that's something that'll get him kick-started. Dan Diedrich has 4 home runs of his own. And then behind the dish, they've been getting some good production out of Tucker Barnhart. He's hitting just below 300 so far this year, so that is something that you like to see as well. Meanwhile, for the San Diego Padres, we got a couple guys that are doing a great job of hitting. Fernando Tatis Jr. was moved to the 1 spot on Thursday, and he's currently hitting just below 300. He's been able to deliver some dingers. Manny Machado's been a little bit shaky with the bat, only hitting 254, but you got to think that he's going to be able to pick it up. Fanmio Reyes has just been a victim of bad luck. He's hitting the ball hard, but he's hitting it right at people, which is why he's hitting 212. Manuel Margot has been picking it up ever since a rough start to the year, but Austin Hedges just has not been able to get out of his own way at the catcher spot. He's hitting below 200, and then Luis Urias is hitting below 100. Needless to say, that's not getting the job done there. I think that this is going to be a lower scoring game, but I think that the Reds have a little bit of better pitching on the bump. I trust in Luis Castillo a whole heck of a lot more than I trust in Eric Lauer. I know that the San Diego Padres have a very good bullpen, but the Reds bullpen, nothing to seize at themselves. So looking at the under and looking at the Reds in this spot, I've already locked in the Reds, currently in wait-and-see mode as to what price I'm going to be able to get on the under. 965, 966 on the betting rotation. The Kansas City Royals are in New York to face off against the Yankees. Masahiro Tanaka goes for the Yankees. Heath Philmeyer for the Kansas City Royals. Total in this game is 8.5, and it is shaded over. The over is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. If you like the under, that is anywhere between even juice and minus 105. The Yankees are a massive favorite, anywhere between minus 225 and minus 240. If you want to take a shot on the Royals, you can get anywhere between plus 195 and plus 210. This is a spot where you either have to take the massive plus price with the Royals or you have to take the run line. You just can't be laying 220 plus juice on any sort of game. I don't care what it is. I just have a tough time being able to ever lay that. And in this spot, I am taking a look at the Yankees on the run line. Currently, I'm seeing a run line price of the Yankees at minus 115. I'm going to try to see if I can get it down to minus 105 or minus 110, but I do think that this is going to have to be the play here. They do have a lot of guys that are able to score and score in bunches, which makes it easier to be able to win on the run line. DJ LeMahieu hitting above 300 so far this year. Luke Voigt, 4 home runs, 15 RBI. We all know about the injuries with the New York Yankees. Troy Tulowitzki, Gary Sanchez, Giancarlo Stanton, Didi Gregorius, Logan Morrison, the list goes on and on. They've got so many guys that are banged up. But with the Kansas City Royals, it's not like they're necessarily lighting the world on fire. They've got a couple guys that are hitting for some power. Hunter Dozier and Jorge Soler going into Friday had 5 home runs apiece. Alex Gordon doing a good job of being able to get on. 328 average, 3 home runs, 16 RBI. Gotta like what he's doing. And then Whit Merrifield and Mondesi at the top of the lineup have been doing a nice job being able to get on base. But it was very encouraging to see for the New York Yankees them be able to get off the mat and have a good performance on Friday after they were inexplicably held down by Homer Bailey on Thursday. I don't know how that happens, but Brett Gardner was able to hit a home run, his 5th of the year on Friday, and then Tauchman was able to hit his 2nd. You still obviously have Aaron Judge in the lineup. And what you also have for the Kansas City Royals is just a very, very poor bullpen. And Heath Fillmyer comes into this game with an ERA of 9. Meanwhile, Masahiro Tanaka has proven himself to be a very good starter. This is one where I'm going to be taking a look at the over. I'm going to try to see if I can get more minus 110 juice on it, but I think that the Yankees should be able to light the Royals up in this spot because I think they get to Fillmyer, and then I think they get to a really bad bullpen, and I think that Tanaka is going to give a quality start, which will allow the Yankees to be able to win by multiple runs. So currently in wait-and-see mode on both these plays. We're going to be taking the Yankees run line and going to be taking this total over. 967, 968 on the Banger rotation. We've got the Chicago White Sox in the Motor City to face off against the Tigers. It is going to be Ervin Santana going on the bump for the Chicago White Sox. Meanwhile, the Detroit Tigers are going to be countering with Daniel Norris, as the total on this game is currently 9, and it is shaded a little bit of everywhere, as the over is between minus 115 and minus 120. The under is between minus 105 and even juice, and I say it's all over the place because this total opened up at 9.5, so it's seen a little bit of a dip. If you like the Detroit Tigers, you're going to be laying between minus 128 and minus 130 if you want to take a shot on the White Sox. Anywhere between plus 118 and plus 120. And I want absolutely no part of Ervin Santana whatsoever. He currently has an ERA above 10, and while Daniel Norris isn't necessarily the Mona Lisa Vito of pitching, he hasn't been too bad in relief so far this year. You got to think that the Tigers are going to be going with a little bit of an opener, and they're just going to be relying on a bunch of bullpen arms. And the Detroit Tigers bullpen has actually been decent this year. They're in the top half of the league in regards to ERA. The White Sox, they've been doing a better job with their bullpen, which is why I'm actually going to take this total under, because I don't think that Ervin Santana is going to be long for this game. In his couple starts so far this year, he hasn't been going deep because his whip is at 219. He winds up jacking up his pitch count because he gives up a whole lot of walks. And with the White Sox, you do have some guys that are doing a very good job of being able to generate some solid contact. Yoan Moncada hitting above 300 so far this year. He was able to hit another dinger on Friday. That was his 6th of the campaign. He's been doing a good job. Jose Abreu seems to be in a little bit of a funk, but Tim Anderson hitting right around 400 so far this year. He has been sensational right now, leading the charge, because what we're noticing with the White Sox is that they've got a bunch of guys that are hitting very well, and then they've got a bunch of guys that, well, they're not hitting so well, because you take a look at Adam Engel, he's hitting below 200. Daniel Polka has 1 hit so far this year. Yes, that is 1. Sanchez in the infield hitting below 200. Yonder Alonso hitting below 200. I mentioned Abreu a little bit earlier. It's really been hit or miss. And then with the Detroit Tigers, perhaps this is what Ervin Santana needs, because he's facing a lineup that, let's face it, they aren't hitting very well themselves. Jose Candelario just above the Mendoza line. Josh Harrison was able to hit a home run off of Carlos Rodon. You got to think that helps out his confidence, but he for the year is hitting below $150. You've got Jacoby Jones out there in the outfield hitting below 200. Peterson out there in that same outfield hitting below 200. Gordon Beckham barely hitting above 200. You've got Reiner at the catcher spot, who I believe had 4 hits on Thursday to send his average to a 212. But then you do have Nico Goodrum and Miguel Cabrera, 2 guys that have been a little bit unlucky with their power. The Tigers heading into Friday had 7 home runs, a league low. But I do think that they're going to be able to generate a lot of solid contact off of Ervin Santana. I think they're going to be able to generate some free passes. And with the White Sox bullpen not being as good as the Detroit Tigers, this is a spot where I take a look at the Detroit Tigers run line. Currently, I'm seeing a price of plus 135 on that run line. I'm currently in wait-and-see mode, and I am going to be taking the total under as well. The only question is, am I going to be able to get that 9.5 once again, or am I going to get under 9? So I'm going to be on both those plays. I'm all about the Tigers in a little bit of a lower-scoring game with both these offenses struggling. I do think at some point Nico Goodrum is going to be able to get a home run as well. He's been a little bit of a tough luck guy in regards to the long ball. So I'm going to be on the under, and I'm going to be on the Tigers just waiting for better numbers there. 969, 970 on the batting rotation. We've got the Toronto Blue Jays going on the road to face off against the Oakland Athletics. Mike Straightfires goes for the A's. Meanwhile, Matt Shoemaker on the bump for the Toronto Blue Jays. Total in this game is 8.5, and it is shaded over. The over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. If you like the A's, you're going to be laying between minus 134 and minus 136. Want to take a shot on the Blue Jays? Anywhere between plus 124 and plus 126. This is a spot where I really do look at the Toronto Blue Jays. I really do like Matt Shoemaker as a pitcher. He didn't necessarily have his best start a couple days ago when he was going up against the Minnesota Twins, but all in all for the year, he has actually been very good, and he's shown that he can be a very good pitcher when he's healthy. He was just dealing with some injuries the past couple years. Currently 3-0 with a 1.75 ERA, .86 whip. He's doing a good job of being able to limit walks. Meanwhile, Mike Fiers, his record is deceiving. He may be 2-1 for the year, but his ERA, a 7.16. He's allowing too many guys to be able to hit solid contact off of him, and he just doesn't have a lot of command. In 21.2 innings, he's given out 10 free passes so far this year. Just not exactly what you need. Opponents are getting 276 off of him. For the Toronto Blue Jays, they don't necessarily have a bunch of guys that are mashing for this team so far this year. Freddie Galvis has really been getting the job done. He's hitting .320 with 5 home runs at 11 RBI. And Justin Spoke, ever since a really slow start to the year, he has 3 dingers, .259 average himself. And then it was encouraging to see Randall Grichuk get a home run a couple days ago against the Minnesota Twins as well. But with the Toronto Blue Jays, who else is really going to step up? Eric Sogard is a guy that could possibly be a really good spark plug in the infield, but he's had a very small sample size so far this year. Brandon Drury hitting below the Mendoza line heading into Friday, along with Rowdy Tellez. McKinney out there in the outfield is hitting .207. That hasn't necessarily gone well. And then when you take a look at the Oakland A's, they've got a bunch of guys that are doing a good job of being able to hit, even though Mike Fiers has been doing a very poor job on the mound. Marcus Semien hitting right around .316. Chris Davis entered into Friday with 10 home runs, 20 RBI. Matt Chapman has been able to generate some power as well. But then you've got a couple guys that need to pick it up as well. Kendrys Morales, ironically enough, who played for the Toronto Blue Jays last year, has not been getting the job done. Jerickson Profar hitting right at the Mendoza line. I will say that they've gotten a little bit of a surprise at the catcher spot in Josh Fiegley. He's been hitting above 300 so far this year, but Steven Piscotty has been a little bit cold as well. Chad Pinder and Mark Hanna seem to be picking things up a little bit, along with Loreno out there in the outfield, but I do think that Shoemaker is going to be able to shut down these bats. And with the Blue Jays bullpen, it's not necessarily great, but it's not terrible either. So for that reason, I'm going to take a look at this under. I think that Mike Fiers gives a better start than he has been recently so far this year, but I think that the Blue Jays in the end win a little bit of a lower scoring game. Currently in wait-and-see mode to see if I can get a little bit of a better price on the Blue Jays. I'm trying to see if I can get more favorable juice on this under, but going to be playing the Blue Jays. I'm going to be playing the under in this spot. We move on to 971, 972 on the betting rotation. It is the Boston Red Sox, and they are facing off against the Tampa Bay Rays in the great state of Florida, as Charlie Morton going on the bump for the Tampa Bay Rays. Rick Porcello goes for the Red Sox. So in this game is 8. The 8 is between minus 110 and minus 115 juice on the over. Under is anywhere between minus 105 and minus 110. If you like the Rays, you're going to be laying anywhere between minus 138 and minus 145. While I take a shot on the Red Sox, that is between plus 134 and plus 128. I want absolutely no part of Rick Porcello right now. I'm not just taking a look at the Rays on the money line. I'm taking a look at the Rays on the run line. I'm currently seeing a run line price between plus 135 and plus 140, and I already locked in the Tampa Bay Rays run line at plus 140. This is a Rays team that day in and day out just continue to get the job done. Their bullpen has been absolutely sensational so far this year. They've got so many guys that they can look to for quality innings, and then at the top of the lineup, Austin Meadows has been terrific. Going into Friday, he had 6 home runs, 17 RBI, hitting .364 with his average. G-Man Choi does a good job of being able to make solid contact for this team. Kevin Kiermaier has really picked up his bat after he batted right around 200 last year. He's hitting closer to 300 so far this year. Yandy Diaz is a guy that's able to generate some power while being a leadoff guy himself. Brandon Lowe has been able to do a little bit of something with the bat. He's hitting just below 300. Whenever they bring in Guillermo Heredia, he's able to deliver a professional at bat as well. So you've got so many guys that are able to do pretty much everything. Aside from Perez and Mike Zunino at the catcher spot, they've really been solid top to bottom with regards to their bats. Meanwhile, with the Boston Red Sox, it was very nice that they were able to get a nice home run out of Christian Vasquez yesterday, but all in all, they've been struggling with the bats. Mookie Betts hitting right around 200 so far this year. Jackie Bradley Jr. hitting a $150. Vasquez, who was able to hit the home run yesterday, he's hitting just above the Mendoza line. Mitch Moreland, even though he has 5 home runs of his own, he's hitting right around 233. JD Martinez is really the only guy that's hitting for average. They've made some incredible shakeups with them sending Blake Swihart down to the minors and him clearing waivers and everything like that. So that's very interesting. This is just a Boston Red Sox team that's all out of sorts. And Rick Porcello himself, I mentioned that I want absolutely no part of him. The reason why, he enters into this game with a 3 whip and is 0-3 with an 11.12 ERA. This guy has absolutely no command whatsoever. Forget him trying to command a ship. He can't command the SS diarrhea in the bathroom at this point. He has been absolutely awful. I am taking the Rays run line, and I'm going to be taking this total over. I think the Rays just absolutely shell Rick Porcello, and they get into a bullpen that, let's face, for the Red Sox has been far from stellar so far this year. I have already locked in both these plays. Rays run line and the over is what we're going to be going with in this spot. We move on to 973, 974 on the betting rotation. The Baltimore Orioles are going to be playing host to the Minnesota Twins. Now, this is going to be a part of a doubleheader. What I'm seeing for the 4:05 game, and this is 973, 974 on the betting rotation, keep in mind, is Martin Perez going for the Minnesota Twins, Alex Cobb on the bump for the Baltimore Orioles. If this is a pitching matchup that we get in one of the 2 games, because I know that the projected starter for Friday before that game was rained out was Jose Barrios. And yes, I just wanted to say that last name, but if that is the pitching matchup that we're going to get for one of these matchups, I would have to take a look at the Baltimore Orioles in this spot, just because Alex Cobb, I know he's been dealing with a little bit of injury, but being able to get an extra day of rest actually might help him a little bit, because he was dealing with a little bit of an ailment, and all in all, ever since the second half of last year, he's actually been a decent pitcher. He has an ERA just above 3, and Martin Perez is just a guy that I really can't stick my chips in the middle with. And then if you guys are looking for a little bit of something deeper, I am seeing for Game 1 as the projected starters, according to ESPN, of Barrios versus Dan Straley. Obviously, no line on this game either, but in that game, I would have to take a look at the Minnesota Twins on the run line. I really like what I've seen out of Barrios. He is 2-1 with a 2.30 ERA, whip of a 0.73. Meanwhile, Dan Straley, he went from having a Great Depression ERA of 10.29 when he faced off against the Boston Red Sox a few days ago to 10.24. And if you know about 10.24, I believe that's as many megabytes as there are in a gigabyte. So he went from Great Depression to gigabyte. Congratulations to him. Dan Straley, though, not necessarily a guy that you want to be betting on. I think that he would get shelled in this spot. Just not going to be able to give you a lot on these totals. I think that both of these are going to be coming out around 9. If the Barrios versus Dan Straley start is 9, I might look at the over, because Barrios is not as good on the road as he is at home, but I would have to take a look at the Twins run line, because I just think that they would like Dan Straley on fire. And what we notice is that with the Minnesota Twins, they do have some guys that are able to generate some power. Jorge Polanco for the year is hitting 400. He's been able to deliver a couple dingers. Eddie Rosario, in their most recent game against the Toronto Blue Jays, had 2 dingers in that one. He's hitting 262. You got Max Kepler at the top of the lineup. He's able to deliver some pop. Jake Cave seems to be coming around with the bat. And then you've got a couple guys that have been a little bit sleepy with the bats. Marwin Gonzalez and CJ Cron, both hitting below 230, but Estadio, I believe I'm saying that last name correctly, at the catcher spot hitting 286, and then Byron Buxton has been doing a good job at the bottom of the lineup, and you can't forget about Nelson Cruz as well. And then for the Baltimore Orioles, Trey Boom Boom Mancini doing a great job with the bat, hitting 338, 6 home runs, 12 RBI. Renato Nunez has also been picking it up with regards to his power. He's got a pair of home runs so far this year. He has a 271 average. Jonathan VR does a good job of being able to get on base for this team. Rio Ruiz has been a little bit of an issue with his bat, but even Dwight Smith Jr. is getting the job done towards the top of the lineup, and Jeff Rickard was able to give this team 4 hits in their 6-5 extra inning win over the Tampa Bay Rays a few days ago. So probably going to be looking at some overs in both these games. But if it's Barrios versus Straley in the first matchup, I'm probably going to be looking at Twins run line in that game. If it's going to be Cobb versus Martin Perez, Probably going to be looking at the Baltimore Orioles in that spot just because with Martin Perez, he's got an ERA near 7. He doesn't have much command, and that means that the Minnesota bullpen certainly going to be getting taxed, and the Orioles have a capable offense of their own. So that's where I'm standing on those games. My apologies on not being able to give you guys too much on that. It's just really tough with a doubleheader and just not having numbers. But we do move on to 975, 976 on the betting rotation. It is the Houston Astros, and they are in Texas to face off against the Rangers. Garrett Cole is going to be going on the bump for the Houston Astros. Meanwhile, he's going to be opposed by Adrian Sampson of the Texas Rangers. Total in this game is either 9.5 or 10, depending on where you look. If you like the 9.5, over is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. Under is between even juice and minus 105. If you like the 10, the under is anywhere between minus 120 and minus 125, and the over is between even juice and plus 105. If you like the Texas Rangers, you're going to be getting anywhere between plus 190 and plus $2. If you want to lay it with the Houston Astros, anywhere between minus 220 and minus 230. And count me in on the Texas Rangers in this spot. I know that it might sound crazy, but I think that Adrian Sampson is going to have a little bit of a better start than he had to begin the year. His last start, well, it didn't necessarily go well when he faced off against the Houston Astros. He actually wasn't terrible in that start. He actually faced the Houston Astros on the 1st of April. He wound up going 6 innings, and he gave up only 1 run. That's actually a very encouraging sign, and for him to be a $2 underdog here is actually big. Garrett Cole himself this year, he's been good. He has a 3.24 ERA, a whip below 1. He's got 36 strikeouts in 3 starts. He's been magnificent. But to show for it, he's only got a 1-2 record. I think that the Texas Rangers are going to be able to get some good innings from their bullpen. I think they're going to be able to make some contact against Garrett Cole, who has been lending himself to a little bit more contact. He's either been striking guys out or he's been getting hit a little bit. And I do know that the Houston Astros obviously have some good bats. Jose Altuve going into Friday's action, hitting .310, 7 home runs, 13 RBI. Michael Brantley, ever since a slow start to the year, has really picked it up. Alex Bregman was able to go yard for his 3rd dinger of the year. And Altuve also just went yard, by the way, as I'm doing this, his 8th home run of the year, so good for him. Yuri Gurriel hitting right around 300. Carlos Correa has been a little bit cold recently, but even Jake Marisnick is hitting above 300. But for the Texas Rangers, they've got a bunch of guys that do a good job of being able to get on base or be able to hit some power. You got guys like Noah Mazzara, Joey Gallo, Asdrubal Cabrera. They're more all-or-nothing bats, but you do have some guys that do a very good job of being able to get consistently on base. Sin-Chu Chu hitting above 333 for this team. You got like the way that Elvis Andrus has been hitting above 350 so far as well, and he's able to generate some power. Danny Santana has been a little bit of a surprise. He got the call-up, and he's been doing a nice job out there in the lineup as well. And I do think that Forsythe at the first base spot is doing a very good job of being able to draw walks. He was only hitting .243 going into Friday's action, but his on-base percentage was a .364. That's obviously a good sign. And then Delino DeShields Jr., whenever he's able to get on base, is able to have some wheels. The Houston Astros, I think, are going to be able to hold the Texas Rangers to 3 or 4 runs, but I do think that the Rangers are going to be able to get a lot out of their bullpen in this one. I think that Sampson's going to be able to get another good start against the Houston Astros. So for that reason, taking the massive plus price here with the Rangers, I'm going to be taking this total under. Going to try to see if I can get more favorable juice on an under 10. If not, I'm going to be taking the 9.5. Next up, we've got 977, 978 on the regular rotation. The Seattle Mariners are in Los Angeles to face off against the Angels. Trevor Cahill on the bump for the Angels. Yusei Kikuchi going for the Seattle Mariners. Total on this game is 9, and it is shaded all over the place. If you like the under, it's anywhere between minus 105 and minus 115. Same goes for the over, anywhere between minus 105 or minus 115. And the game is all over the place with regards to the sides as well. The Mariners are anywhere between a minus 105, essentially even up pick, to a plus 104 underdog. Meanwhile, with the Angels, you're laying anywhere between minus 105 and minus 114. I have some faith in Kikuchi being able to generate a good start here. Trevor Cahill has been doing a good job as a starter so far this year with the Angels, and we all know that the Angels bullpen is very good, but they had to get very, very taxed in that game on Thursday, in which was just a wild one. We saw the Mariners very nearly blow an 8-run lead. That was absolutely remarkable to say the least, but I think that Kikuchi going to be able to come in and he's going to be able to deliver a good start. He's 0-1 for his career, but so far he's been doing a pretty decent job of being able to get some swing and misses. Has a 4.23 ERA. He's been doing a nice job of being able to limit the walks. 27.2 innings, only 6 walks. He has 20 strikeouts, so maybe I overstated his strikeout stuff a little bit, but he's been limiting hard contact. He's been keeping the ball in the yard. And with Trevor Cahill, he's a solid starter, but he's not necessarily a guy that you're going to hang your hat on being able to go a very long ways and being able to give you a whole bunch of swing and miss stuff. In 22 innings so far this year, he's limited the walks with just 4 of them, 4.50 ERA, so he's solid, but I think that the Seattle Mariners lineup in general is going to be able to rake. You've got Domingo Santana, who heading into Friday had 24 RBI, 4 home run. Jay Bruce, 8 home runs so far this year. He's hitting below 200, but with that said, you've got so many other guys that are hitting for not just power, but also for average. Edwin Encarnacion, Daniel Vogelbach, Mitch Haniger, Tim Beckham, Omar Narvaez, Ryan Healy, the list goes on and on. Healy in that game on Thursday had multiple dingers, and Narvaez had one as well. And with the Angels, you've got Mike Trout who's hitting above 300. He's been spectacular. Brandon Goodwin has come in as a bat that can deliver an average of above 300, but what are you getting past that? Peter Borges hitting below 100. Zach Cozart barely above 100. Tommy La Stella, because of 3 hits on Thursday, was able to break the Mendoza line. Cole Calhoun is hitting below 200. And Dalton Simmons seems to be getting on the right track. That's obviously encouraging to see. And Daniel Fletcher doing a decent job of being able to get on base. But past that, you just don't have a lot with this Angels lineup. This is a reason why I have to take a look at the under, and I've already locked in that under. And I'm trying to see if I can get a Mariners run line here. It's right now varying, because what I noticed with the run line is it's only for the favorite. The Mariners opened up as a favorite, so I'm going to try to see if I can get a run line. If I can't, I'm just going to try to take a plus price on the money line, but that's where I stand right now. I'm going to be on the Mariners, either on the run line or on the money line, and I'm going to take this game under. I think that they're going to get a very good pitching performance from Kikuchi. I think they're going to be able to hit a couple deep balls as well. And we wrap things up with 979, 980 on the betting rotation. This is a game that is off the board, and it is going to be that doubleheader between the Braves and the Indians. The listed game is for 1:10 p.m. Pacific. This should be game 1 of the doubleheader, and that will be Julio Teheran taking on Corey Kluber. And because of the doubleheader situation, we have no numbers up on the board, and I'm right now trying to take a look at the Game 2 starters, and I see that Trevor Bauer is going to be going in Game 2 for the Cleveland Indians. And for the Atlanta Braves, currently undecided. I would have to think that Tuki Toussaint might be able to get the ball there. From the numbers that we had on Friday, it was the total of 7.5, with the Atlanta Braves being a pretty big underdog. I think that something similar might be happening here against Corey Kluber in that first matchup. And in this case, I'd probably back Julio Teheran if you're getting a good plus price and the over. Julio Teheran, as we know, is a wildly inconsistent starter. So far this year, he's 2-1 with a 4.73 ERA. He's yielded 10 walks in 21 innings, but he's also got 23 strikeouts. He's allowed opponents to hit 259 off of him. And with the Cleveland Indians, they've got a couple big bats back in the lineup now. Carlos Gonzalez and Jason Kipnis are back in there. They are obviously still dealing with an injury to Francisco Lindor. But something else that you want to check, the health of Carlos Santana. He is currently day-to-day, and he's been their big bopper bat, because though he's only had 1 home run so far this year, he's hitting 389. He's been their stabilizing force. If he's not able to go, it means that they're going to need guys like Leonis Martin and both Hanley and Jose Ramirez to really pick it up, because both of the Ramirez's go into this game hitting below 200. Leonis Martin has been picking it up with the bat. He's hitting 258. He's hit a couple home runs. And then Taylor Naquin at the DH/outfield spot has been able to do decent. But Greg Allen hitting 0.36 right now. Morav at the shortstop spot, 0.77. Perez behind the plate, 162. There just isn't a lot of bats that are going for the Cleveland Indians. Meanwhile, with the Atlanta Braves, they've got a lot of very good bats. I know that they were held to 1 run in their series finale against the Arizona Diamondbacks, but all in all, you take a look up and down the lineup, they've got a bunch of guys that can hit. Ozzie Albies hitting just below 300. Freddie Freeman hitting 324. Ronald Acuna Jr., 317. Nick Markakis, 317. Dansby Swanson has been absolutely magnificent so far this year towards the bottom of the lineup. 273, 4 home runs, 18 RBI. Ronald Acuna Jr., 6 home runs so far this year. Heck, you can even bring in a guy like Camargo, and he's able to hit for you. Charlie Culberson has been doing a great job in a little bit more of a platoon/DH spot. You've got so many guys that are able to hit for this Atlanta Braves team. So in that first matchup, I would have to look to fade Kluber and take the over. I think that the Braves would be able to get to him. And I know that the Indians have a good bullpen, so I think that'll be interesting. As far as the second game, if it is Tuki Toussaint versus Trevor Bauer, I'd probably look at the run line here. Trevor Bauer is is a guy that I'm really looking to back. He has been terrific so far this year, sans that one outing that he had against the Detroit Tigers, in which I believe that he gave up 4 runs in that one. But all in all, he has been just dynamite. 2-1, 2.05 ERA, 103 whip. Sometimes gives up a couple too many walks, but I think that'll be able to do a good job there. So that's currently where I'm standing on these doubleheaders. Like I said, just tough to give you overly much with not having numbers on the board, but hopefully I did a good job there, and hopefully you guys enjoyed what you heard today right here on MLB Overtime Betting. And if you did enjoy what you hear, I encourage you to subscribe on Apple iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. A big thanks to our guest in the second segment, Joe Rivera, for joining me of Sporting News, dynamite stuff there. And let's make today a successful, profitable, and fun one. And as always, if you ever have a question for the podcast, feel free to tweet it in at @unit_81. Always happy to answer those, and always happy to talk at you guys, which I will do once again tomorrow on Easter. Thank you so much for tuning in.